Hello everyone, Joel Tavern here from Golf Monthly, and welcome to this video where I'm going to be talking you through the clubs in the bag of world number 3, Justin Thomas. We know he's a Titleist staff player, so he will have Titleist clubs through his bag from driver all the way down to putter and obviously the golf ball as well. But we're going to have a deeper dive into each of those clubs, some of the specs that he uses, some of the settings that he employs on those clubs to help him perform out on the golf course. He's already amassed 13 PGA Tour wins and the 2017 PGA Championship as well. So clearly he's a prolific winner, and we're going to have a deeper dive into the clubs that are in his bag. So let's get started looking at the driver. Right, so first off, we're going to talk about the big dog, the driver in the bag of Justin Thomas. And he has been using the Titleist TS3 driver for a number of years, but recently he did switch into the Titleist TSI3, the new model for 2020 and beyond. Justin Thomas said he preferred the feel of this driver, and he employs a couple of settings on this driver that encourages a bit more of a fade. We know generally, while he can work the ball both ways, he does prefer a fade shot off the tee, and he has his driver in 9.5 degrees, but in the B1 hosel setting. It's actually the same setting I have on my TSI3, which is a slightly flatter lie angle. So it's the same loft, flatter lie angle encourages a little bit more of a fade. And he also has the SureFit CG weight in the T1 setting. So it's not the most extreme toe weighted. He could go a little bit further. Toe weighting obviously encourages a fade. He's got it in the T1, so only a slight fade, but combined with that flatter lie angle will encourage a more of a left to right ball flight, or a straighter ball flight for him. So some interesting settings on there. He has his in the Mitsubishi Diamana TB60TX shaft. We know Justin Thomas carried his TS3 driver around about 300 yards through the air, and if he's experienced similar gains to what I've experienced with the new TSI3, we can expect to see him carrying it even further out on tour this year. Right, so moving on to the Fairway Woods, and starting with the 3-wood, Justin Thomas uses a Titleist TS3 Fairway Wood. He's got it in pretty standard really, 15 degrees, A1 SureFit hosel setting, and he's got it with the Mitsubishi Tensei AV Raw Blue 85 TX shaft. Normally carries this club around 275 yards, so a deadly option both off the tee and into long par 5s as well. Moving on to the 5-wood. Now Justin Thomas will vary the club in this position of his bag depending on the course that he's playing, but he has the option of a 5-wood, and he actually has quite an old 5-wood in his bag when he chooses to employ this club, whether he wants potentially a bit more height into some long par 4s and par 5s. He'll go for this Titleist 915 FD. I've got the 3-wood here, but he has it in the 18 degree head, but he has it in the B3 SureFit hosel setting. So that's plus 1.5 degrees of loft, but also a little bit more draw bias. So it's interesting to see that Justin Thomas opts for a little bit more draw bias in his 5-wood. Conversely, with the driver, he was trying to encourage more of a fade. He has this in the Fujikura Motore Speeder VC 9.2 Tour Spec X shaft, and he normally carries his 5-wood around about 250 yards. But if there's a course, maybe it's quite windy or he needs to keep the ball flight down, he will switch out his 5-wood for a Titleist U500 utility iron. So he has this in the 2-iron. I've got the 3-iron here in this particular model, and this is the more compact option out of the 2 U utility irons that Titleist have brought out. So this is slightly more compact, narrower sole, not quite as forgiving, but does flight the ball a little bit lower. And he has this in the KBS Tour Hybrid Proto 95X shaft. So clearly Justin Thomas likes to keep his options open in that end of the bag. A lot of tour pros do the same. Depending on the course and the conditions, they will switch out that club, but he's got the option of either the 2-iron or the 5-wood. Next up, we're talking about Justin Thomas's irons, and like a lot of other tour pros, Justin Thomas combos certain models within the set to tailor the performance to exactly where he needs it. So he carries a Titleist T100 4-iron, and then he has Titleist 620 MB irons in the 5-9 iron. So I've got one here. This is Titleist's kind of best feeling, most compact iron in the range. It's an out-and-out muscle back. It's geared for absolute maximum feel and workability. We know Justin Thomas is one of the best ball strikers out on tour, so he's not really looking for forgiveness. He's definitely looking to shape the ball and maneuver the ball flight, and he's able to do that with the 620 MB irons. And he's got them in the True Temper Dynamic Gold Tour Issue X100 shafts. Right, so moving on to the wedges of Justin Thomas, and I was surprised to see the specs actually that he employs on his wedges, because it's interesting, he doesn't carry the pitching wedge within the Titleist 620 MB iron set. He has a Titleist Vokey SM7 pitching wedge as such. Is 46 degrees, bent to 47.5, and he has that in the full sole grind. He also has the Titleist Vokey SM7 raw wedge in the 52 degree, and then he moves into a Titleist Vokey SM8 56 degrees bent to 57 degrees, but interestingly he has that in the full sole grind as well. Normally we see as the players go up in loft they switch to a more versatile grind, a grind with a little bit more heel relief and toe relief, and a bit more kind of shape to the sole, but Justin Thomas opts for a pretty generic sole grind. There's not much camber to it. It's a grind that most players will employ in their lower lofts for full shots, hence the letter F, but he uses it on his middle wedge. And finally, in his lob wedge, Justin Thomas has got the Titleist Vokey Wedgeworth 60T model, bent to 60.5 degrees, so clearly he's getting very dialed in on his lob wedge. I know he uses it a lot on full shots to get those really specific distances, and he's got obviously a 4 wedge makeup in his bag, so he's got nice even gaps there to cover off all those distances. And let's face it, when you're as big a hitter as Justin Thomas, you're going to be hitting a lot of wedge shots into the green, so it's important to have all those distances covered off, and he's got that with those Vokey wedges. Right, so next we're talking about Justin Thomas's putter, and he has done a bit of chopping and changing the last year or so in terms of the specific Scotty Cameron model that he uses. He went to a blade very briefly and also switched into a Phantom X, but in the end he went back to his old favourite, his trusty Scotty Cameron X 5.5 prototype. It's more of a compact mallet design with that kind of fang shape, which we know a lot of tour pros really like, and it's got a slant neck hosel as well, so that's going to provide a slightly different flow and some slightly different visuals as well. And given the level of success that Justin Thomas has had with this putter, Scotty Cameron decided to release it out to the public. So only 2,020 of these putters were made, and they were sold for £849 and sold out very quickly. And if you were lucky enough to get your hands on one, do leave a comment down below. I'd love to know what the experience was like of using the putter that Justin Thomas uses. Last but by no means least is the golf ball that Justin Thomas uses, and he uses a Titleist Pro V1X. It's interesting, we've seen out on tour recently quite an even split between Titleist Pro V1 and Titleist Pro V1X users, but clearly Justin Thomas prefers maybe the slightly firmer feel and also the higher flight off the tee of the Pro V1X, even though the performance differences between the two are relatively small. And interestingly, out on tour recently, we've seen Titleist seeding the new Titleist Pro V1 and Pro V1X golf balls out on tour. So it'll be interesting to see which tour players adopt these into their games. We've seen Brian Gay already win out on tour using the new Pro V1 ball for 2021. So watch this space on the Golf Monthly website in terms of information and reviews on the new Titleist Pro V1 and Pro V1X golf balls. But for the moment, Justin Thomas is using the Titleist Pro V1X to very good effect. So that concludes our in-depth look at the clubs and ball in the bag of Justin Thomas. I hope you liked the video. Do click the like button if you like what you're watching, and subscribe to the Golf Monthly YouTube channel, of course, if you don't want to miss any of our equipment videos. But that's all from me, from West Hill Golf Club. I'll see you next time.